It's not worth it. It's not worth to betray your country or people. Anthony Bwalya. Anthony Bwalya was on radio, globetrotting, on radio station, what, defending the president. And look what has happened to him. Look at what has happened to him. Another example that I'm going to give you is an example. The case of Pilato na Kangwa Chileshe, Jason Kabanana and Pilato. It's a shame that they don't realize what's really going on. So, what I want to say this evening is this. Case yakwa Anthony Bwalya. Let's learn something from it. No, is there no sound? Is there no sound? Somebody saying there's no sound. I left. Alan says another big use for you is Sunday Chanda from Kachibie constituency. So, let's start calling in Zambia. Tamufua Echinka. That's why it's easy for politicians to lie to you and get away with things. The case of Anthony Bwalya, it's all clear, plain black and white. Now, if you to say no, he has $600,000 in his account. Ni cover-up story. It's a cover-up story. Woofy. For the past, since UPND took over, Anthony Bwalya has only traveled once, and that was Saudi Arabia. After Tualanda Potusenga, Anthony Bwalya, Finshofosh as a presidential spokesperson. I think you remember, you guys, when we spoke about these issues. Do you remember when we spoke? And then Ofobam Sendereko, Anthony Bwalya. And from just taking him one trip, Cascando Kafmat, Anthony Bwalya secured $600. Come on, guys. How gullible do you think Zambians are? God, if in a cover-up story to make sure to say, oh, okay, to say, oh, they are tribal and what is the tribal thing, what. Okay, so information to say, oh, he's involved in corruption. Because if really Anthony Bwalya was involved in corruption, given the fact that President Hakainde Hichilema is fighting corruption, do you actually think he would spare him to give him another position in a foreign country, knowing for the fact that Anthony Bwalya was involved in corruption? A person that's fighting corruption. How do you take us for former Zambians? Do you actually think we're that gullible that you can come up with a story and we're just going to believe that story? Because he would have been fired. Already, Anthony Bwalya, in the eyes of the public, is not a good person. He's been lying to the Zambian people. So everybody would have gone with the UPND to say, come on. Yes, it's a good thing that you fired him because he was involved in a corruption. You don't promote someone the way Watchdog is saying that he's been promoted into foreign service. You don't promote somebody who's been involved in a corruption scandal. Woofy. So if really Anthony Bwalya was involved in a corruption scandal, Zambians, first of all, won't be by his side. And President Hakainde Hichilema claims to be fighting corruption. He could have fired him, instant dismissal. But obviously we know. We know some people that have a pabwelu and say, okay, they've been involved in corruption. So, Anthony Bwalya, we saw it coming. Takwa for Opo UPND. Yawinina. Umuntu asharafi Mzambia as a presidential spokesperson. Look at Amos Chanda, how he used to move with President Edgar Lungu. And even when Amos Chanda was involved in a scandal, Edgar Lungu was going to fire him. There was a scandal that Amos Chanda was involved in. Edgar Lungu was going to fire him in that scandal. People pleaded with Edgar Lungu to say, okay, send him to foreign service. Edgar Lungu said, no. Corruption. End results why Shemomati resigned. And that's why he resigned. Just to save face. So don't take us for fools to think, oh, we are going to believe that Anthony Bwalya, one presidential trip. Do you think those guys in Saudi Arabia, don't insult these people, please. Zambians, you are playing a very dangerous game. Because when you say that somebody is involved in corruption, because Saudi Arabia, they don't play around with corruption. You know how they deal with people. You're putting other people in danger because obviously, if Anthony Bwalya was involved in a corruption scandal in Saudi Arabia, those guys they don't play. They don't play. They don't play. Saudi Arabia, we want to go and find the root cause to say, who was this presidential spokesperson? Who was he dealing with? You're putting somebody's life in danger in Saudi Arabia. So don't start issuing statements you think you can go to other countries, claim there was a corruption going on, and then think that that person will be scot-free. The Zambia Mwangala, where there is a corruption scandal, you play around. Among Saudi Arabians, these guys, that's why you see they're different. They follow themselves, their traditional sense, how they dress is so different. Because they're very precise. And when you say things like Anthony Bwalya was involved in a corruption scandal, you're denting their image. They are very precious when it comes to their image that they've built. So you ought to be very careful. You ought to be very careful when you release such statements. Because it's not just about Zambia. It's about another country. You're involving another country in your propaganda, your shenanigans. It's not good. It's not good for Zambia. You claim you want to open up markets, you want to open up whatever, but then you scandalizing a country. First of all, it's not that just scandalizing about corruption involving in Saudi Arabia. You're forgetting the fact that even President Hakainde was went, instead of him just begging for oil, he started saying, why should we be getting oil from Saudi Arabia? Diplomatic relationship, therefore by yo. If you want to take a relationship with a certain guy, deal with the two of you. South Africa dealing, don't involve other countries. This is why it's called sovereignty. If you are dealing with Saudi Arabia, deal with Saudi Arabia. Don't involve other countries. He went to Angola. I'll come tomorrow and I feel better to play a video where he specifically said, why should we be buying oil from Saudi Arabia instead of Congo, instead of Angola? No, Mr. President. Kabia and Angola talk about Angola and Zambia. Don't involve Saudi Arabia in your discussions. Even if you want to get oil between you and Zambia. Don't start saying, Saudi Arabia. Those guys don't play. You don't deal with Saudi Arabia in such a manner. It's very dangerous. Now, I am bilateral talks. That's why you think things are not moving, because they watch. Every single statement that you make, people are watching. It's not just Zambia. They are watching. Even that statement that was released in America when they went to sign that agreement. You remember? To say we have to curb China's influence on the African continent. Have you seen how China is coming out? Have you seen when China does not involve itself with the other countries, like whatever you're doing? They know what they're doing. They know the agreements. They do it like that. This is the first time that I've heard China release a statement to say, let US deal with Congolese Shabo. They owe 1 trillion are not involved. And that's very dangerous. This is the people that we owe money. This is the people that we owe money. And instead of us as Zambians, what are we doing? We are adding salt to the wound. We are adding salt to the wound. This is the current state. This is the Zambia that you have. It's very dangerous. His global trading is saying he's building relationships. No, he's destroying relationships. Because all this while Zambia has enjoyed relationships with other neighboring countries. What he's doing is everywhere he goes is leaving a very bad mark. Because instead of just going where he is to talk about their understanding, their MOUs, it brings in another country that's so sovereign, that has got its own dealings. It's like Mulomo. Bafmak Saudi Arabia, Bayako Angola, why should we be getting oil from Saudi Arabia? Imagine that statement from a head of state. Instead of mulombe femwebene tu oil to tu inoto mulefuai, instead muirombere, mwambo kubika mwabanto bashishibi. Mwayako America, mwambo kusta involve China. Talk about America, deal with America. If you're going to deal with China, deal with China. If you're going to deal with South Africa, deal with South Africa. If you're going to deal with Angola, Namibia, deal with them. Don't involve other countries in your talks, your Shina. It's dangerous for the nation. You're not building diplomatic relationships. You're destroying diplomatic relationships. Zambia as a sovereign state needs to be diplomatic in a sense that it has to deal with a certain country, not involving, not denting other countries' image. It's dangerous. So the case of Anthony Bwalya, I forced myself, I'm not okay, you can see, but I forced myself to come live because Anthony Bwalya, I advise him to say, if you really care for your reputation, resign. But Anthony Bwalya continued from a radio station, globetrotting, lying on behalf, globetrotting, lying, creating that distance between him and the general public. To say, because once vakushita, I think you remember very well when I mentioned this statement. I said, once vakushita, vaku become system. Wafmaku reality that general public. The case of Pirato. They will use you up until a certain extent, and then they'll get rid of you. Now, Anthony Bwalya has got nowhere to run to because he can't come back to the public. Just yesterday he was lying. But if he saw it, and if he saw our advice fit, he could have resigned and the general public could have given him respect. And he could have gained trust with the general public. But he didn't. So, he ended up in a situation where he has nowhere to go. He can't come back in the good books of the public. And when I say the public, I mean the Zambian people that put UPND in power. He knew he was lying. He continued to lie. We called him out here to say, stop lying. You're selling electricity. But he continued to lie. So in our eyes, he's not somebody we can trust. Today, Anthony Bwalya cannot issue a statement that the people are going to believe. This is why he's got no choice but to accept this demotion they are calling it ati. Panakondeapa. Promoter. Do you know the distance between the information that it was being information which I doubt from State House? You to be maybe feds katush information pakta ikwat. So now he can't come back to the public because he had a chance to come back. This is the thing. This is politics. He had a chance to come back, to resign. Wakwata ko ichirumba, like Tayali said. Tayali said, wakwata ko mungorolo, a spine, to do what's right by the people. He had that chance for 1 year. Within 1 year, months, you could have seen to set up Anthony Bwalya. So he could have had a chance to rebuild his trust with the Zambian people. In which time we would have been on his back. I mean, we would have been behind him. If he resigned to say, this is not what I voted for. Zambian people for now, Baba no mlinganya. If there's one thing about Zambians, they can be quiet, yes. They can be patient, yes. But umulinganya we nabadi banao. They could have welcomed Anthony back into the society, and they could have accorded him the respect just by resigning. But because of our selfishness, because we want to continue to chew, we make ourselves dormant to be stamped upon. And that's what's happened to Anthony Bwalya. So he knows for the fact that when it comes to the general public, ka income takudi. So what does he do? He has to accept that position. That's it. Anthony, do you know that there was one point where Anthony wanted to stand as an MP? Okumupuisha political career kwa Anthony yapwa. Because Zambians won't be able to trust him. And now he has to accept a job that really for him, coming from a presidential spokesperson, it's carbon. If you talk about Mona, it started with Chela. Chela was a photographer. Chela goes, when you're a presidential photographer, look at Salim Henry. Salim Henry was everywhere ECL went. To China, Kuisa, wherever ECL traveled. Salim Henry was there. But what do they do? Brazil. Because if he goes out there, so the best way is to get rid of Chera, is to send him in foreign service. And that's what they did. The same thing is happening to Anthony Bwalya. One presidential trip, Anthony Bwalya demoted. I know about Watchdog, they are trying to come up with convincing, come on, Patanzania, na State House. Imo. So, here, but, I'm a scandal and whatnot, awe. Woofy. Inanaika na scandal. The Kenya kubika wa Saudi Arabia, mashinanigans yam Zambia. Saudi Arabia is not Zambia. They take these allegations very seriously. Na papat. Lekenu kubika Saudi Arabia. Uma issues yam Zambia. If we take things lightly, just a case of abducted girls. Yadi shima filafine. That's NHI yam Zambia. Abducted girls. That's why you know for ya issue. Yadi tarara. We've moved on. So, but when you come to these countries, when there are corruption scandals, they take things because they've got this traditional things, especially when it comes to these Arab countries, where they value their tradition, they value the discipline they've instilled in their people. So, Mozambia, we are good at talking to Arabako. We move on to the next trending thing. Kudia, it won't end like that. So if you know for sure that this issue is a propaganda, stop it now. Don't involve Saudi Arabia in Zambian shenanigans. Don't. Ni country ya avoid ya lekeni issue. If you know for the fact that it's a lie, stop it. Tuampapata. You cannot run a country on propaganda and including other countries to apapata. Don't do it. But we're asking you in good faith to say, if you know for the fact that this is a lie, it's a propaganda, and Anthony was not involved in corruption, and so it's all the case of demoting him so that he doesn't know what's going on. Leave it at that. Don't start involving Saudi Arabia in your shenanigans. Then, another example I'm going to give you. In case you have Ministry of Sports. The Ministry of Sports. Now, I'm going to go Pirato. Babula Bankandu Babemba. Babula Jason, who is Kangwachileshe Mubemba. Basa Bura na ni fube Bwalya Pilato basa abika na muni same institution Kangwa na Pilato at 2 permanent secretaries. Ministry of Health requires what? Why would you need 2 permanent secretaries? And if it was 2 permanent secretaries, why should they be members both? Why should already 2 people in one position is conflict of interest? That, oh no, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Sports requires 2 people to do the job. No, that job is for 1 person, a permanent secretary of. This is why you have a minister as well as a permanent secretary. Here later by Pilato. Remember when Pilato came in and was appointed, when we called him out on this page to say, Pilato, where are you? Where are you? Start speaking for the people. PF because the cost of living has gone up. Has gone up. 3 days later, and after that, actually, Pilato posted something about what Shushua said. There was a statement that Shushua wrote where he said, why is it that President Hakainde Hichilema is a darling outside Zambia, but really in Zambia is losing popularity? Do you remember that statement? Pilato posted that. After we called him, he shared that. That article was so detailed. If you've not read that article, read that article when Shushua wrote about why President Hakainde Hichilema is a darling with the US and wherever he goes. But when it comes to country, is losing popularity. Read that article. Pilato shared that article. 2 days after sharing that article, 3 days after we called him out to start speaking, Pilato was appointed PS. They knew that Pilato would start talking. The best way to shut Pilato is give him a position. If they were willing to give Pilato a position, they could have given Pilato a position just then when they won elections. Not after 1 year. Position. No. It's because they knew Pilato had a following that was following UPND, an influence that influenced Zambians to vote for UPND. So they appointed him. And what did they do? Appointed him where a position where Kangwa Chileshe was holding. Imagine that. Already there's a conflict of interest. It's one position held by 2 people. No, but Pilato will come in with his own work ethics. Kangwa Chileshe was there before Pilato, has his own work ethics, reporting to 1 minister. Now, here's what's going to happen. Sooner or later, there will be confusion to Ministry of Sports. And you, and that to a fair chance, but they can't even work. Already they are calling you clique of thieves. This time they're saying, they are going to say, we gave them positions. Now they can't even work together. Look at them. They will laugh at you. Because to be honest with you, how can 2 members hold 1 position? A position that is required by 1 person. Think about it. It's creating a confusion amongst yourselves. If it's workplaces, workplaces, everyone wants to look like Eule Bombesha. Kangwachileshe want to put up to say, oh, ine Pilato ewan sangire. Do you actually think back home for up to 5 years in that same position? Up to 3 years, but Pilato should be one of the most smart people we should know. He should have seen that. Pilato should have seen that. And when he should have seen that, he would have carried more weight. And this is what's going to happen with Pilato. When they are done with Pilato, or even Jason, but with Pilato, he was an activist. He portrayed himself as an activist. So when they are done with Pilato, do you actually think Pilato will come back to the general public and maintain his same trust that the general public had in him? After being so mute about the happenings in the mines, after being so mute about the high cost of living which he campaigned ECL against, after being so mute with the shortages of drugs in hospitals, after being so mute with the high cost of living, the meal prices, do you actually think Pilato will ever carry any sort of relevance in the public, in the Zambians' eyes? Now, look at his page, what it's doing. And that's how people finish. And this is where a system uses certain people to finish them. And when it's done with you, you have nowhere to run. This what's happening to Anthony Bwalya won't just happen to Anthony Bwalya. Anthony Bwalya has got no choice but to accept that, because obviously he needs to eat. What is he going to do in this economy? What is he going to do, Anthony Bwalya, in this economy? What? And because Watchdog wants to do a damage control, they start dishing out how Barnabas Mumba was sent to Canada as a foreign what? No, come on. From vice president to Shanyuko. Abaden Baba from vice president to president. But Bongasaba commission of Shan, Shanai commission of Shan. Come on, we all know history of Nevas Mumba. We all know what Nevas is doing. But Nevas Mumba, any president that comes, he wants to lick. He was licking himself. But Nevas Mumba, every day, prayer and fasting. Every day, he was there, 18 October, prayer and fasting. You think he wasn't eating? You think he wasn't eating? But Nevas Mumba was everywhere, kneeling for ECL. Kneeling for ECL. Today is doing the same thing with Hakainde Hichilema, because that's how he survived. He would rather sacrifice his own dignity for something. And you tell me to say, oh, in UPND there is no something. Come on. Come on. Something. No, UPND. Tamava something. Kuisa. But Nevas can't even see the atrocity. The same thing we condemned. As we are coming out to condemn them in UPND, it's the same things that we condemned in PF. This is why we see most men that claim to be men of God are the hypocrites ones. They are the worst ones. Because if you spoke for the poor Zambians, right now, I'm a train. Are you aware that abantu couldn't afford getting on buses? They got on trains. Right now, they've raised from 100 kwacha to 210 to get on a train to travel. They've raised railway prices, railway fares. They've raised them up. There's no leeway for a poor person. There's no space for a poor person. And Barnabas Mumba, instead of him being true to the word, being true to himself and his God, what does he do? He sacrifices the dignity he has as a man of God and the Zambian people, and he keeps on licking. Pilato lost his voice. Imagine building that reputation. Pilato built that reputation to just come and destroy it for a few months or a few years. Pilato will never be seen by the people the same. Woofy. Us who interacted with Pilato one-on-one, we don't see him as the same. So you have to be careful on how to be used. Be sure to say, the Zambian people will stand by me. Because if Anthony Bwalya was honest with the Zambian people, right now we could be the one talking for Anthony Bwalya. We could be calling for his reinstatement. Us, the general public, we could have said, and we could have welcomed him back into the society. Now, instead, he could have still gone round Pama radio station and talk for the Zambian people and would have clapped for him. This is why it's very important to be honest and true by your country and by the people. It's a lesson. The first thing you need to serve is your country. Be loyal to your country. Politicians, they come and go. And politicians will come and use you until they are done with you and they drop you. The way they've dropped Anthony Bwalya. Same thing will happen with Pilato. Tapado baya Pilato, Buffy, Karaka permanent secretary, Kana nobody never kangwa chile shebaji. Baka pusano bubisana. Baka pusana. Tawaba. You put them in one position. We now got to office. What's to my permanent secretary? Because by the same level, nobody's reporting to who. They're reporting to one person, who's the minister. Uyunga na kwata, akakwata dimika group kakwe, akadeshitofu ya refuaya, uyuna oka ngwachishna kwata ka group kakwe. Conflict of interest. Bale mitea, you are watching, you are clapping. When you differ, mukabutu kirakwi. Okay, look at them. They can't even hold the position. They can't even manage to work together. How do you think they can save a country? Why mono for you? So anyway, natanda tinshile kokola. So if you want to equalize, it's better to be by the people. Now at least Tayali, this is the difference with Tayali. You can tell that Tayali, even if he does Sevana Wikute, speaks for the people. He's always gonna have the people. This is why you watch him. This is why by pressing you go to watch Tayali. Why? Because he even speaks on you, the people that insult him. He speaks. His allegiance is with you, the Zambian people. He says, but he speaks against those people because his allegiance is with the Zambian people. That's the difference. This is why you find that Tayali will always stay relevant because he's with the Zambian people. Leaders. Akesa live video, you go and watch him. Why? Because you know he's speaking for you. That's the difference. They forget everything. They forget about that person, a child who's going to bed hungry tonight. They're forgotten because they're getting cars, they're getting money, everything. So they would rather, this is why President Michael Sada said the most educated people are the most coward because they don't want to lose their comfort zone. They think we'll lose our comfort zone, then if we will go. It's rare that you find an educated person. In education, I'm not talking about education, but in terms of speaking for the hungry. No. It's a handful. If you find a person who's comfortable enough to feed and still speak for the poor, embrace that person, hold that person. That's a true patriot to that country. But no, in this time, Simon Moore. But you know he's a useful idiot. They're still using him like that by social media. It's very unfortunate that we, especially Mozambia, we have a people, and that includes some opposition. I don't care, sir. Like any impole. Ma opposition leaders that are betraying your people for a few kwachas. They are opposition leaders in Zambia betraying you, the people, so they can eat. And they call themselves opposition leaders. It's very unfortunate that we have opposition leaders of the belly. Sata knew what he wanted. That's why his legacy still lives on. That's why we're still talking about PF until now. Sata was not an opposition leader that spoke for his belly. Sata was an opposition leader that spoke for Abalanda. This is why even when PF is out of power, we're still talking about PF of coming back. Because that legacy that Sata left still stands. Take it or leave it. It still stands. And we have leaders that some of them, they know their political career is dead. So they are making tuma deals kumbali. They are making tuma deals at your expense, fooling you, the Zambian people. Like any import, case. Imoma opposition leaders, you know yourselves. It's not right what you're doing. This country, we need to defend this country. You know what's going on in this country. But you decide to feed your bellies and your children, and you call yourselves opposition leaders. It's very unfortunate. Na muishiba. I'm an opposition leader in a pretense of opposition leaders. Opposition leaders speak for the people. This is why you have opposition MPs in parliament, is to speak for Abalanda, not for your bellies. It's so unfortunate. One thing, Zambia. We had Sata. Sata was a political leader that knew the suffering of the Zambian people. And regardless of being arrested or threatened or what, he still came out and stood for Abalanda. Right now, we have 13 million people starving. 13 million people starving, and you have an opposition leader talking about Arsenal, talking about Chelsea. Chelsea. How about for now, focus on the issues affecting your people? We have opposition leaders that have become social bloggers. Social bloggers, so opposition leader is social blogger. Just for likes. Going for likes, chasing likes. Very, very unfortunate. A country is going down the drain. Opposition leaders, you call yourselves opposition. They know that their political career is down the drain. So what do? They have to make a deal with the devil so they can eat. But we're talking of the future generation. You have to be patriotic to your country. Imoba youth. It's your country, whether you're oppressing or what. Be patriotic to your country. The leaders, they come and go. Chalo. It's very, very unfortunate. It's disturbing at opposition leaders. Opposition leaders. My goodness me. Today maybe that PF they weighed it up. But they've learned their lesson. They made the mistake. UPN, you look at the mistakes what UPN is doing. And UPN's mistakes, my goodness, open your eyes. Open your eyes, you Mozambian people. Open. It's going to be too late. You had a leader like ECA who protected the sovereignty of Zambia. This time around, sovereignty. Zambia's sovereignty. Hey! Okay. Anyway. Nalanda kofein. But that's why you find that a lot of voices that were so vocal during PF, a lot of voices that were so vocal and critical of PF, it's either they've been given to more positions or they're secret eating, so they stop talking. It's sad. The only person that I've seen that has maintained the same caliber, let me say, Tayali, you can condemn him to say that Tayali, alalandikisha, what, no. But at the same time, Tayali, mwaume. Tayali alanjira kwa balanda. Muneje was Tayali, ingatekano kakwa Tayali. Apanga ichiri west, Zambia nga iri west. I'm telling you, that guy, that same one Tayali, you know mulanda mwadisula. Urawi no mutuka uji. He's done so much than you can ever imagine. That because of his live videos, because of how he comes out, UPND failed to make certain decisions. They keep hold of making certain decisions. And this hate that has been instilled in you to say, oh, PF, Pangazi, and what? No, Ndamiaba Johnson. PF na UPND, they are both culprits of that. Why did other political parties join in? And if PF comes back, and it will come back, and I can assure you, there will be no cadreism. That I can assure you. There will be no cadreism. No snake cadreism murepange ya bufish. Cadreism ya muri cadreism mu UPND. You want to stamp it to say, oh, takwa cadreism. I'm a panga what? No. Cadreism is there. Except amakadazi baba UPND baranda ninsala. Baranda cause na bana bara chura fi. Bara chura fi amakadazi baba UPND. So kula sabaira fe to make some sort of relevance kwamba fe kusabaira pa social media so that baba mone atema niko baba pereko ka position. But truth be told, Zambia is in its worst state. You thought PF was bad? Wait. Now remember 2023 kabashani. Ero ba among kwambe nukusta demand. Badi mipera ama meal allowance. They told you. But mu budget. Ba among could right now start claiming your meal allowance. Start claiming ba among pasi paunza. Ida ba mitara rike. Ida mwaisha na to dogs what. Apani January. Apwa January. Start claiming your meal allowance. Tumo nga bara mpera. Tuwani miebe that they sneaked in ka. Now claim it. But minister announced to say they brought back meal allowance. Let them find money to give you meal allowance. But among pounds. By UPND, they want praises before they can even act. So start claiming meal allowance. Have they given you meal allowance? Start claiming it. So, if you're on them, it's so unfortunate with Anthony Bwalya. If he had ears, he could have listened and stopped lying to the Zambian people on behalf of people that didn't even, care for him. Because if they did, they couldn't do him the way they've done him. And he has no choice. So, I sympathize with him, but I'm not sorry. Same applies with Pilato. You think Pilato, if something happens to him, I'll be sorry for Pilato? That's because he's chosen to feed his belly and stop talking about the real issues affecting the country. So why should I be sorry for Pilato? But Rora means nabo. But I soon a position. That is the most fake human rights advocate we've ever had in our country. A cadre. A stone cold cadre. Laura Meet at human rights advocate. Which human rights is she advocating for? Even calling Anthony Bwalya incompetent. Anthony Bwalya was not incompetent. Anthony Bwalya was sidelined. And all he wanted to do is to prove his relevance, to hold on to that position. Even at a time when he knew nothing, he had to come up with something just so he can hold on to that position. So if Laura Minty was really a person that really understood what was going on with Anthony Bwalya, she couldn't come out the way she's coming out. I didn't block up her Facebook because she knows. I didn't block. So I see, but the more want to mulandanga. Moimona. Elo, she likes this situation where she thinks she can write about Bembas, Muri Buchimbuya. It's the second time she's doing this nonsense. The last time she did was about the TV. Oh, it was Bembas. What do you expect from for them to run a country? She makes it like Nichimbuya to Reseka, but that's how she comes out. A very bad-hearted woman. And the way she's come out calling Anthony Bwalya incompetent and so much incompetence is really bad. That's terrible. She of those people she could have kept quiet. If Anthony Bwalya, we told him to say, Chitafe resign. Tabakupenda. Today she's calling him incompetent. The only thing that Anthony Bwalya was trying to do is hold on. You can sympathize. This is why I sympathize with him. Because Despite us warning him to say, Chitafe resign, he held on to that position and continued to lie on their behalf. But you know, the day of reckoning is coming. The God in heaven is not asleep. If you're from Lake Chitaban, Alaf Panga Tmui stayed out because of her ex-husband. Charlie be pumped machima yo chid. You don't do that to people. You don't do that. So even her, she's trying to protect. It's bad. She wants to protect that comfort zone that she's in. So she scandalizes the friend. Instead of her sympathizing with the friend to say, you want to for the past 1 year. Which trip has Anthony ever made to Bwalya? Which trip? The president has made about 32 trips. The only trip to Saudi Arabia you to scandalize umuntu. At least if you can't speak, have some sort of sympathy. Me, I sympathize with Anthony because I know the anguish that guy has lived for the past 1 year. And I know what it is to throw away your dignity as a man, to lie, to start lying on behalf of another man. You throw away your principles. He sold his principles, his dignity, Anthony, for a few kwachas. Open your eyes, my man. This is reputation. He has nowhere to run to. He can't come back to us. Because for us, he was like betraying us. When Zambia complained of electricity, it's like he betrayed the Zambian people. Because he lied. And he continued to lie. Even today, he continued to lie. And even though deep down he knows he's been demoted, he's praising. It's so unfortunate. It's so unfortunate. 32 presidential trip, 1 presidential trip, Wakstana demoted. I'm telling you. At Finch Hichilema, let me see. At sometimes I wish HH was a tribalist just to teach the section of members that unapologetic tribalist a lesson. Manja is a decent being. This is a human rights advocate. This is a human rights advocate. And when Tayani calls out at you are dividing a nation, is this not divisive? How to remove wash? Echo balandirati uduse rwalire nkwali twaya pwira fwe babembo muliro pamakasa uyu. And you don't condemn this. And this is a human rights advocate. A human rights advocate writing this nonsense. In this country, Panto if you feel Tanora mitif. You think Abemba will see this and be happy to say, okay, now Baremba Rora meet. You actually think Bembas that made sure that UPN, without a Bemba vote, call a spade. Without a Bemba vote, UPN wouldn't be power. Wanarumango was used to get a Bemba vote. We campaigned for HH as Bembas. Finish off from Leland. Don't do this. Don't do this. I beg you, don't do this. You think this country will be governable if one Bokchta? This is a human rights advocate. Instead of her being equal and protecting every citizen's human rights, she wishes HH to be a tribal so we can deal with us, the members. Are you serious? Are you really serious? Is this a game you're gonna play around? Nora miti. Akudienda lama. Teka amatako punch. Na kupapata. You are a human rights advocate, act like one. This is very dangerous. You actually mule imiemitima abantu tabakwete fyakudia. Abantu life na ikosa. And this is the nonsense you can write. And the Bemba person has been demoted to be a deputy Chakuti. And you write that nonsense. Guys, what are you trying to do? Social media likes. Why? UPND tried. Let's start calling a spade a spade. UPND tried to win in three provinces. They failed. Not until Copperbelt voted. Not until Wapula voted. Not until Eastern voted. We looked at HH not as a Tonga. We looked at HH to say, let's give him a chance to be a leader. We campaigned for HH. You want to deal with the Bembas? Is this the country you're going to be? Is this the unity? Guys. At when you check the comments, a lot of Tongas were saying, at this tribe thinks it's so special than any other tribes in Zambia. How kwenda? Nampezeni aletambo. Nampezeni ale hey! Eyo ishmwarifi wanokuikara pa mutomboko. But now you are playing with fire. Now mwish what's chalwe chocho mule yanga shefi. Now mwish what's chalwe. Do you know how the war in Rwanda happened? This is the second time she's writing this nonsense in Buno. It's not the first time. She wrote another nonsense, another article about Bembas like this. And you actually think this is a country that's going to be united. Ain. Ababemba. Buy more chero, buy me pay their votes, and this is how you repay them. Truthfully speaking, this is the second article she's written. Murefu tukapunda tukafirira munsenga. Is that, and you think the country will be governable? We want to save the future generation. Because his situation, I wrote an article to say PF might have started the smoke. UPND will light the fire and it's gonna burn this country down. You have a chance to stop this nonsense. Start speaking. Call for people to resign.
Mommy,
yeah?
There's something I just don't like.
Okay, I'm coming.
I'm going to tell you.
I'm coming, see.
Do you know those white things?
Yeah.
But they go like straight like
yeah.
that. I don't like them.
Okay, eat the other noodles.
Well, I tried to eat the noodles, but every time I keep getting the things I don't like.
Okay, I'm coming. But anyway, let me go. Again in there and to shake. In case I feel going on canapora. Balola meets lesami pad. Lesabe na him. Atish kushari ngeni omwana na nina. Yo, Francisca, we go and sleep.
Find the controller, not the white one, the black one.
No, let's go.
I can't find it.
He's fine. It's just me was not feeling well. Good night, guys.